Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. It's Democracy Apparently. Hope you're all well today. Yesterday, a vile individual committed a terrorist act that attacked Jews because they are Jews and attacked Britain because of our values. And after every attack, it's the same old script from Keir, Starmer and Sadiq Khan. We get the empty words, the tired rhetoric, the meaningless promises. Our leaders talk about solidarity, about how we won't be divided. But what if it's not just a failure to find the right words? What if it's a deliberate pattern of doing nothing, a pattern that only emboldens terrorists and leaves us all less safe? After Golders Green, the real question isn't what will our leaders say next, it's when will we finally stop listening and demand they do their jobs? On Wednesday morning in Golders Green, the heart of London's Jewish community, that tired old script was dusted off once again. Two Jewish men, one in his 70s and the other in his 30s, were viciously stabbed in broad daylight. The police have now declared what we all knew from the very first moment: it was a terrorist attack. An eyewitness even reported the attacker appeared to be looking for Jewish people. The Islamic supremacist intent could not be any clearer. And then, right on cue, the statements started rolling in.
Well, let me start by saying what an appalling attack this is, and my thoughts and all of our thoughts are with the victims, their families, their loved ones. And let's be frank, this is not an isolated incident. There have been a series of anti-Semitic attacks, and I know firsthand the anxiety that is causing in the community and concern. I was
Prime Minister Keir Starmer addressed the nation, calling the attacker a vile individual who attacked Britain because of our values, before convening his emergency Cobra meeting. The Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, performed his usual role, saying it was appalled and angry. He promised additional police officers and more support and solidarity, as if that was ever going to be enough. Does any of this sound familiar? Because it should. It's the same exact song and dance we're forced to watch every single time, the same hollow phrases from the same failed leaders. But for the people in Golders Green, for a British Jewish community living in fear, these words aren't a comfort, they're a profound insult. They're an insult because they come from the very leaders whose policies of appeasement create the conditions for these attacks to happen over and over again. One community member, surrounded by flashing blue lights and police tape, said it best: "We're just crying out to the government just to listen to us, feel our pain. How much more can we take?" Britain's chief rabbi was even more direct: "We would like to see actions added to words." But action is the one thing Starmer and Khan never give us. Instead, we get a playbook of empty phrases, a performance designed to manage our anger, not fix the problem. They tell us they're appalled. They say, stand in solidarity, that we must remain vigilant. It's a nationwide gaslighting campaign led from Downing Street and City Hall. They think if they repeat the same old lines enough, we'll start to believe they're actually doing something. They must think we're stupid. But don't think for a second that Golders Green was an isolated incident. It's just the latest and most brutal entry in a long and bloody ledger of failure. To understand the betrayal from men like Starmer and Khan, you have to see the pattern. Think back to May 22nd, 2017, a suicide bomber murders 22 people, many of them children, at the Manchester Arena. What did our politicians do? Then Prime Minister Theresa May raised the threat level and chaired a Cobra meeting. We saw vigils, defiant statements and promises to stand united. And then just 2 weeks later, on June the 3rd, 2017, another attack. Terrorists use a van to mow down people on London Bridge before rampaging through Borough Market with knives, killing 8. The response? Exactly the same. A statement from Downing Street, Sadiq Khan talking about London's resilience, and then nothing fundamentally changed. After both attacks, inquiries were launched. Years later, the Manchester Arena inquiry told us what we already knew. MI5 acted too slowly and more should have been done. It was a mess of communication failures and missed opportunities. Yet the political class, the class Starmer and Khan now lead, just carried on, acting like these attacks were unavoidable acts of God, like an earthquake or a flood. The playbook is so predictable you could write it yourself. We will not let them divide us. This is not who we are. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. London is united. These aren't statements of strength, they're admissions of defeat. They're the words of leaders who either have no answers or worse, have the answers but refuse to use them because they are terrified of offending the Muslim communities that voted for them. It's a linguistic shrug, hoping that if they say the words, they can wash the blood off their hands. But they can't. The responsibility lies not just with the terrorists, but with the leaders who fail to stop them and who keep on failing. But this betrayal goes deeper than just words. It's baked into policies of leaders like Starmer and Khan. For decades, a toxic mix of political cowardice, bureaucratic paralysis and pathetic obsession with not offending Muslim communities has completely neutered Britain's counter-terrorism strategy. Just look at the government's flagship de-radicalisation programme, Prevent. The name itself is a joke. It prevents nothing. The official 2023 review of Prevent found it had failed and lost its way, that it deliberately ignored the main threat, Islamic extremism, and even funded groups with Taliban sympathisers to appease Muslim activists. People who were flagged to Prevent went on to commit terrorist attacks. Even Keir Starmer once pathetically admitted that a perpetrator had been referred to Prevent 3 times, but the judgment call that he wasn't a threat was wrong, and an admission of failure with no consequences. This isn't a strategy, it's a tragic farce. And this failure isn't an accident. It's a choice. Our leaders have been more worried about having difficult conversations than confronting the threat. As the author Douglas Murray has pointed out, for years the British government acted like Islamic radicalisation was a problem for other people. And this weakness extends to banning extremist groups like take Hibs ut Tahrir, an anti-Semitic group that openly praises terrorism. For years, governments failed to ban them. It took them openly celebrating the horrors of October the 7th on our streets in 2024 to finally shame the government into action. For years, this hate group was allowed to recruit and spread its poison among British Muslims, while our leaders just looked the other way, too timid to act. This is a policy of betrayal, a two-tier system where political correctness comes before public safety. A system where leaders like Starmer and Khan are more scared of being called Islamophobic in a meeting than they are of an actual terror attack. They see a man screaming jihadi slogans and their first thought is about a potential backlash from Muslim community leaders, not about protecting the public. It's a total moral inversion and it's taken root in Whitehall and the Met. Let's just call this what it is. It's a betrayal. It's a profound and unforgivable betrayal of the British people by the ruling class. They try to tell you these attacks are from lone wolves or misfits. Starmer himself pushes this lie, talking about a new threat of loners in their bedrooms. This is a deliberate tactic. It's designed to make terrorism seem random, because if it's just a random act by a disturbed individual, then Starmer's government can't be blamed for failing to stop it. But it's a lie. It's a lie because while these attackers might act alone, the ideology driving them is global, expansionist and totalitarian. It's an ideology nurtured in unintegrated Muslim communities, preached by radical clerics and excused by apologists in our media and universities who tell us that just naming the problem is bigotry. Our leaders aren't stupid. Starmer knows all this. Khan knows all this. They see the same evidence we do. So why do they keep up the charade? Why cling to the same failed policies? It's because they've made a cynical calculation. They've decided it's politically easier to manage the decline than to reverse it. It's easier to absorb the occasional terror attack offer some condolences and light up a landmark than it is to take the hard steps needed to secure our country from the enemy within. And those steps would be hard. They would mean actually securing our borders. It would mean rooting out extremist networks from Muslim communities, no matter how loudly their defenders complain. It would mean banning the hate marches, the ones that foster hatred with cries of intifada and from the river to the sea. It would mean stopping the infiltration of Islamism into our schools and universities. It would mean stopping the invasion of small boats bringing more Islamists into our country. It would mean rounding up all illegals and deporting them. It would mean any immigrant committing any sort of crime whatsoever being deported. It would mean deporting the hate preachers in the mosques. It would mean proscribing the Muslim Brotherhood and the IRGC as terror groups. It would mean ending the absurd pretense that a medieval death cult is morally equivalent to the principles of a Western liberal democracy. But they are unwilling to do this. They're afraid. Starmer and Keir are cowards, and they have betrayed our trust. They have betrayed the victims of Golders Green, of Manchester, of London Bridge and every other attack. They have betrayed every single citizen who expects their government to do its most basic job, keep them safe. And the pattern is clear. Words are predictable. The inaction is a choice. Leaders like Keir Starmer and Sadiq aren't protecting us. They're managing our decline while telling us not to believe our own eyes. After the blood on the streets of Golders Green, after seeing Jewish men hunted in London, we'll be told to remain calm and come together. We'll be told not to let the terrorists win by dividing us. But the division is already here. It's the division between a public that is scared and angry and a political class personified by Starmer and Keir that is insulated, inept and completely indifferent. The question isn't what they'll say next. We already know the answer. The question is, when will this stop? When will we stop accepting their excuses? When will we, the people, finally stand up and demand that they do their duty? If you see this pattern too, share this video. Make sure the truth can't be ignored. The mainstream media won't tell you this story, but we can. Subscribe for more of the analysis they don't want you to hear, and let's start holding them to account. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you in the next video.